Welcome back, squad. 50 stats from the 2024 fantasy season. Buckle up. Let's go. Like I said, squad, 50 stats from the fantasy season. Strap in. It's going to be a hot second. Let's get rolling. First stat for you, we're going to categorize these kind of by position. Baker Mayfield had 3 games below 18 fantasy points, and he finished as QB4 last season. I'm going to try not to talk after every single one because there's 50 of these, so hang tight. I liked Baker last year. We'll see how he is next year. Number 2, Bo Nix finished as QB7 last season and was 9th at QB in average fantasy points per game, so top 10 quarterback. Number 3, Jaden was 2nd at QB in rushing yards, and he was 1st on his own team, which maybe tells you more about the backfield of the Commanders than Jaden himself, but it's fun to see. Number 4, Tua was 41st, that's hard to say, in rushing yards last season. He had 50. Joe Burrow last season led the league with 38 pass attempts a game and 43 thrown touchdowns. Number 6, Anthony Richardson had a 47% completion percentage. That's crazy. And number 7, Richardson had less passing attempts than Tua had completions. And yes, they were both injured. Still interesting. Anyway, moving on to running backs. Number 8, Stat Bucky averaged a 45% snap share last season. If that number goes up 10%, I think he's a rock star. Even without it, he might be a rock star. And probably correlated to that, Rachaad White had 3 rushing touchdowns last season. Just 3. Number 10 since week 12. Rico from week 12 on had no games below 18 rushing attempts. That was so hard for me to spit out. I had to say it like 5 times. Breece Hall was 4th in average targets per game at running back last season with 4.8, just under 5. For the Commanders again, Brian Robinson had a 52% snap share. Eckler, if you can guess, had a 53 average snap share. Saquon had 21 more rush attempts than the next closest person, and he didn't play week 18. And they won the Super Bowl. So this one I think is interesting. Bijan had 0 games below 10 fantasy points last season. None. It's 0. Nice. Derrick Henry averaged 1.3 targets a game last season. We knew he wasn't going to catch the ball. Kind of continues that. You might say, hey, that's pretty bad. Tank Bigsby had 12 targets the entire season. That is less than 1 a game. Oh, God, that's bad. The leading rusher on the Oakland Raiders last season, Alexander Mattison. You want to guess how many yards? I'll give you a second. 400 yards. Last running back stat in games without Tua, Achane averaged close to 7 fantasy points per game. With Tua in the lineup, he averaged 25. On to wide receivers. Jalen Waddle, we're staying in Miami, averaged 5.2 targets a game last season. He finished at wide receiver 55 in average fantasy points per game. Yikes. Similar concept, DK Metcalf finished as wide receiver 34 in average points per game. Meanwhile, Cortland Sutton was wide receiver 15 in total points on the year. Puka was wide receiver 26 on the year overall. You might say, well, that's not very good. He missed 6 games. I love Puka. It's getting bad. And you think Puka was really good. That's really good. T. Higgins was wide receiver 17, and he missed 5 games. Little sneaky Jacoby Myers was wide receiver 23 in average fantasy points per game last season. Jaden Reed was wide receiver 42 in average points per game. Romeo Doubs was 51. Like I said, you can't trust Green Bay wide receivers. And this was a big letdown for some people. Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver 42 in average points per game. Big bummer there. Flip side, Jordan Addison was wide receiver 21 in total fantasy points. A little rookie fun fact, Brian Thomas Jr., BTJ, was 5th in receiving yards overall. Pretty crazy. After he was traded to the Jets, Devontae Adams was 4th in average targets per game last season. Once he was traded to the Jets, it also affected Garrett Wilson, who was 18th in targets per game, which sucked because I had him on my team. Bad. Jameson Williams from week 10 on averaged 16 fantasy points per game. And after the Bengals bye week, Jamar Chase averaged 25 fantasy points a game. On average. This is also interesting. George Pickens and Puka Nacua both had 3 receiving touchdowns last season. Just 3. And last wide receiver stat for you, Malik Neighbors. Lowest targets in a game last season was 8. That was the lowest he ever had. He just plays on the Giants. So That's rough. Moving on to tight ends. After an amazing 2023, Sam Laporta averaged 5.2 targets a game last season. You say that's not good. Mark Andrews averaged 4.1 targets a game last season. On the flip side, Trey McBride had a 27% team target share as a tight end. Crazy. And once David Njoku was with Winston, he was second in average targets a game. After their bye, Jonnu Smith was fifth in average fantasy points per game at tight end last season. Sneaky Mr. Smith. And then Mr. Inconsistent, Hunter Henry had 9 games below 10 fantasy points last season. You might say, that's bad. He was their leading receiver last season. What are we doing, New England? The last group are other random stats I kind of just threw together and didn't know where to categorize them. We are almost done, I promise. We're at 41. 5 of the top 6 defenses in fantasy last season were top 6 in takeaways as well. Correlation, maybe? Who's to say? The Philadelphia Eagles were first in time of possession for an offense. Last place, maybe you can guess it, the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Los Angeles Rams threw over 75% of their targets to wide receivers and less than 10% to running backs. That's just a Matthew Stafford special. The Chicago Bears averaged the lowest yards per game as an offense last season out of anyone in the NFL. The Pats were dead last in passing yards last season, which you probably could have guessed, but they had under 175 a game. And the Raiders were last in rushing yards a game with under 85. Believe it or not, Alexander Madison's 400 didn't do it for them. The Detroit Lions averaged over 33 points a game last season as an offense. The Browns averaged 15.5. And that's with Winston coming in halfway through the year. That tells me how bad Deshaun Watson was. Also, the Browns, another bad stat, they had a negative 20 turnover differential. Negative 20. The best in the league, the Buffalo Bills, plus 23. And the last stat for you, this makes me think they're going to pick a new quarterback. No one has turned the ball over more last season than the Tennessee Titans. Wouldn't have guessed that, but yeah, that checks out. Whew. Anyway, y'all, thanks for sticking to the end. That was 50 stats for you. Hope you like it. Football season is coming soon, but not soon enough. We will talk to you later. Peace out, Girl Scouts.